Hi, everyone. This is Len Renier, Wealth and Wisdom Institute. And today I'd like to discuss with you some of the elements that we'll be covering in our road shows coming up. They're starting on April 22nd and throughout the summer. And these are going to be important events because there's so many things going on in our country right now and financially that we have to pay attention. You know, that if anything, that we've learned in life, it's about paying attention. So today I want to start out by saying there are two big questions on my mind about what's going on. The big questions are this: when and how long? And what I mean by that is, when are we going to climb out of this turned down economic situation because of the pandemic? And then there's going to be an element of euphoria and the market will look really good. For how long? And I think we have to really consider some different elements here when it comes to the government and what's going on. So once we get out of the pandemic situation, when will that happen? And then how long will that actually last? And then the other question is, when does it go back to normal financially? When does it actually go back to normal? And how long does that last? So today we want to discuss some elements that are very important and are happening in our country right now. You know, the problem with when and how long is the government looks at this as an event. Coming out of the pandemic to the government's in the government's eyes is an event. It's not a trend. And when we start looking at the difference between an event and a trend, trends last much longer. Now, we're going to go through coming out of the pandemic. We're going to go, it's an event. I'm sorry. I mean, it's not a trend. But unfortunately, the government is treating it like a trend and will tax it like a trend and will spend like it's a trend far into the future. An event has a limited amount of time in which it takes its course. The taxation and spending that the government's planning goes out for 10, 15 years, impacting not only our generation, but the next generations down the road. So we have to pay attention to what is really going on. And in our road shows, we're going to be talking about the characteristics of greatness. That's going on the inside, teaching you all of these elements that are going to impact the planning results in the future. What makes you important in front of the client? It's what you know. And what you know now is very important. See, the word now is very important. There's no now in the past. There's no now in the future. It's now. So what you know now is going to be very, very important. I keep waking up every morning thinking about the government and the way they're approaching this. And look, I'm not political. I'm governmental. The government's doing this to us. But it doesn't really matter when we're looking at who's running the show. If it's hurting us, it's hurting us. The one thing that keeps bothering me about all of these things, and we need to slow the thought process down just for a second. Why are we increasing taxes if there's no intent for the government to pay back the debt? We can look back historically for 20 years, 25 years, and all of the programs that they push through and think we're still paying for or not paying for, but taxes will be going up. And they're offering a lot of free things and trying to, show some shiny objects in front of us, and so we get excited. But another question is this: at what point does the mouse realize that the cheese in the trap is not free? When it's too late. So we have to pay attention to what's going on. And I just want to spit out some things today that were alarming, because the first quarter of the year, I do a lot of economic things. I attend a lot of meetings and a lot of conferences, and we talk about what's going on in the government. In the year 2000, the government debt was at $5.6 trillion in the year 2000. In 2020, it was 22 trillion. And the 5-year projection going out to 2025 is $49 trillion. That's from the Congressional Budget Office. You look it up. The spending that was occurring in the year 2000 was $1.7 trillion. In 2020, it was $4.3 trillion. And the projection going out to 2025 is $9 trillion. And the debt per taxpayer has gone from, in 2000, $54,000 to a projection out at 2025 of $366,000 per taxpayer. The one thing that really is underneath my skin in all of these thought processes is this: the amount of M1 money in the year 2000 that's money in circulation, was $601 billion. In 2020, it was $3.2 trillion. The 5-year projection looking out goes to $29 trillion. Now, you got to understand that the government is spending, you have to understand how the budget works. In every year they do the budget, and it begins October 1st. And in the budget itself, there's about $3 to $3.5 trillion that are fixed. It's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and things like that. So those are fixed items. So in the 2021 budget was at $4.8 trillion. Now, this is hard to believe, but government spending will hit $10 trillion in 1 year. They're printing $60 billion a week. Now, here's the key: the number of taxpayers in the United States isn't increasing that much. The 5-year projection is 2% increase. So we have to understand that we're spending our way to oblivion. Shoot, I'm old enough to remember when we did it to Russia. The country went under because of its spending. And we got other elements around the world watching what's going on, following down the same path of just spending our way into non-existence. The GDP in the year 2000 was at 58.4%. In the year 2000, it was 129%, 2020, excuse me. And in 2025, its projection is somewhere between 190% to 204%. So where are we going with this? Well, I think it's going to be very important for you to understand why we say the things we say. And what's going to make you, from the inside out, the best planner in front of that client. Well, it's going to be what you know about the math and the aftermath of what's going on currently, and the hiddenomics that are going to change everybody's financial future. The whole idea behind this is bringing thought and innovation into the financial future of you and the client. Without knowing this, you're simply going to look at them and say, well, the market's going to go up. You know what? The market is going to go up. It has to. I mean, it's the amount of money they're printing, it has to. The market is measured on volume. And that's where the M1 money comes into play. When we're printing so much money, the market must go up in volume. So there'll be that euphoric situation when the economy starts to open up again. But the big question is, how long will it last? A lot of economists are saying we have to make a choice. And this is very important to think through, because that choice might be which of these two evils do you want? Inflation or depreciation of the value of the dollar? I believe that at some point I'm in favor of inflation. At least it's controlled in different sectors of the economy, and I can watch prices go up, and I'm have a little bit of control of that. But if we lose the value of the dollar, then I have no control over that. And two economists, the chief economist for the past president and the chief economist right now, said, listen, inflation isn't important. What we're concerned about is maintaining the strength of the dollar. Well, how do you weaken the strength of the dollar? It's simply by printing more money, $60 billion a week, and then spending it $10 trillion in 1 year. So these are the challenges we're facing in the future, and we need to have a discussion with the client to create the environment where they want to move forward with us. They have a sneaky feeling too inside of them that things aren't going to be all that great. And they can't wait for the economy to open up, and neither can I. I think it will be good for a period of time. But remember, that's an event, not a trend. And the trend is spending and taxes. And these are the things that are going to interrupt and change our position as planners financially far into the future. So you're only going to be as good at what you know, not what you see on the illustration. The illustration is useless. We have to have some frank discussions about what's happening, and we want to start talking to you about building you up from the inside out, because the industry is very, very busy training you from the outside. Oh, here's our product. Here's the brochures. Here's the illustrations. This is wonderful. All you got to do is say this, and look out for our analytics, conformity, and compliance. That's all you got to do. They're training from the outside in. What we're talking about here is training you from the inside out. What you know inside is going to determine your success in the next 5 years, not on the outside. Because on the outside, the reality is the traditional financial thinking has not changed a whole lot in the last 2 years. Oh, it's all about the rates of return. It's all about, where your money's at, how much you got. Oh, we can do better than that. But on the inside, if you know something is going to happen with certainty, would you go down that path so that the solution collides with the problem? I had a brand new car, picked it up on January 29th and put about 80 miles on it. And then somebody in a left turn lane decided not to turn left. They wanted to come out and pulled out right in front of me. And I had no choice but to swerve, go up a curb in between two poles, sideways down a curb, cross an intersection, and up another curb. And nobody was hurt. In fact, the person that caused all this took off. And hopefully I will get my car back after 5 weeks of waiting. But it's the idea behind this discussion is this. If I had known at that time there was going to be an accident on that corner, would I have gone down there? If I know inflation and taxation are going to be a problem, with certainty, do I want to continue my planning on issues that involve taxation and the lack of certainty? It's a very simple question. But from the inside out, the most important product we can put in front of that client is you, an educated you, someone that understands and has the awareness of what is about to happen and preparing our clients for it. So that's the path of the roadshow symposiums this year. We're at April 22nd. We'll be in Dearborn. May 6th, we're going to be out in Salt Lake City. These are going to be exciting one-day events. And I think you need to have some idea of what the statistics are saying and what's going on. So the characteristics of greatness is going to be the theme of our discussion. It's what you know that will determine your success. You know, hope is not a good strategy here, and stability is an illusion. Say that to your clients. Well, we hope the market keeps going up and when taxes are low. And wait a minute, I see the accident coming. Do you? Or are we just going down the path of the analytics, the conformity and compliance of the industry? You know, we have to have that discussion with the client about there's a dilemma here. The goal of the company, let's admit it, the goal of the company is to maintain the client's money for the longest period of time. Listen to the words they use, money under management. To control the money of the client for the longest period of time. The goal of the client is to achieve their financial goals in the least amount of time. Who's going to win that game? And then the money itself and the economic trends and shifts and the things surrounding the money are changing dramatically as we speak. So we need to talk about the math and the aftermath of the pandemic. We need to understand what is happening now and how it's going to change our lives forever. And we have to have that discussion. Our roadshow is going to be talking about, you know, the characteristics of greatness, searching out the skills that you have inside you and honing in on them, making you the best product in front of the client. I can't change illustration. I can't change the product. But you know what? We can improve the relationship and communication with the client. So the math and aftermath discussion is going to be very important. Understanding what we know now about the numbers and the way things are trending and the way things are just events. The math and aftermath is going to be a serious discussion at taking a look at what's going on and its impact 5 to 10 to 15 years from now, and how that's going to change the bottom line of all of the planning that we're doing today. We have to have a discussion about hiddenomics. This is a great conversation. I look back and, you know, lean back and think sometimes, what are the things that are destroying our assumptions far into the future? There are 9 elements. They're not on the illustration. But there's 9 elements that will destroy all of the concepts and the planning that we think we've done properly. Risk, taxes, regulation, inflation, depreciation, a dollar, time, rates of return, monetary unit, and accumulation. There's the 9. Now, if we don't know how these are going to impact that illustration we're showing the client, then maybe we should go back to selling shoes or something. But this is going to change it dramatically. We see the accident coming. If you don't, well then, you know what? Go do your job, do the best you can with the information that you have, and we'll hope that your client turns out all right. You are the solution in the client's life, not me, not the company, not the illustration. You know, if our greatness was centered around the illustration, we all would be millionaires. But let's look at this from just a sports standpoint. Wayne Gretzky, one of the greatest hockey players ever lived. Do you think the puck manufacturer made him great? Jerry Rice, a tremendous receiver in the National Football League. You think the football manufacturer made him great? Do you really believe that the illustration is making you great? And the company is making you great in their brochure? No, it's you. And if you can't make that commitment, then you know what? You need to go somewhere else. But the point is, we want to work with you to bring out the skills that you have inside of you. And that's going to be very, very important. So let's take a look at generational planning and how it fits into the scheme of things. Because what we want to understand is that how do we do planning and have someone own a number? And how do we do planning with all of the turmoil that's going on right now? So we want to take a look at the situation, and we want to um, analyze it the best way we can. And having the information about future elements, taxation, inflation, depreciation, are very important tools inside of you. If you started a plan for somebody in the year 2000 to retire them at $1 million in the year 2020, and you told them you just put this money away each month, and after 20 years, you'll end up with $1 million, well, that's financial planning. And miraculously, somehow, the client and you made it to $1 million 20 years later. Now they're ready to retire. But let's slow the game down just for 1 second, because you know what? That illustration was correct. The math was right. But the reality is, accumulation cannot be spent at the store. What is important is the buying power. You see, 20 years later, that $1 million has the buying power of $690,000. Who's going to bridge that gap between 690 and $1 million? Is this a shock to the client now? Oh, wait, let's finish the story too. Now you need to pay taxes on $1 million with $690,000 of buying power, and you end up with about $500,000 of buying power in $1 million plan. Who's going to bridge that gap? Buying power and accumulation is different. Generational planning. We look at the scenario and try to overcome as many of the challenges, the 9 elements in Hiddenomics that we can avoid. And owning a number is going to be very important. The rich understand this very clearly. If you own a number in your financial future and then pay for it, then you own the number, and you can use it as leverage for other things that you want to do in your life. So I think the road shows, we're doing these, we're doing up to the standards of the pandemic. We're very safe. We're trying to limit it to 15 people in a setting. You need to come to one of these and discover and make you the most important product in front of the client. So let's take a look at some of the challenges that we'll be facing. You know, knowledge is something that you learn, but wisdom is the ability to apply that knowledge to your everyday life. And if you understand clarity in your financial life, that is wisdom. See, wisdom gives you the opportunity to review and rethink some of the decisions you made in the past. And with more information, you'll be able to make better life decisions. This is words to give to your clients. This is communication. This is self-development. This is reaching out to the client with the right conversations. And the purpose of talking to the client about financial clarity is to address the financial challenges that we all face in the future, and identifying the things that you do see when it comes to your financial future, but more importantly, the things you don't see. A very important conversation. If we don't see what is about to happen, if we don't see the accident waiting to happen in our country, then, you know, you're going to have a lot of company. So we have to take a look and discuss with each other, and that's what Hiddenomics is about. It's groupthink. How do we address the issues? Well, there are 5 elements that I pointed out in the past that, you know, are going to just damage any planning that we try to do. And the first one is, it's going to be more difficult to achieve financial goals simply because all of the people's money in the planning efforts is surrounded by risk, taxes, regulations, inflation, depreciation of the dollar. If we don't understand that, then we lost the game. This is the litmus test for your planning. Did we overcome as many of these 5 elements as we could? Second, the basic financial formula that is being used in traditional thinking is flawed from the very beginning. Time times rate of return times monetary unit equals accumulation. Accumulation is not buying power. And the only element in that formula that is correct is time. It's consistent. How much time do you have? And the question comes back, when and how long? The rate of return fluctuates. We see that in the marketplace. The marketplace has to go up. They're printing too much money. It's measured on volume. The monetary unit, the scary, scary, scary thing underneath the bed and in the closet in the bedroom, is can it hold its value while we print $60 billion a week? These are issues we need to come up. The third element in this situation, the economic trends and shifts are not favorable for traditional planning process. There's too much activity going on. There's too many things pulling down or pulling at all of the numbers. Our industry is centered around math. And the math can be very confusing when we take into consideration the 9 elements that pull on it. Like that story I told you about the $1 million planning, ending up with $690,000 of buying power, and after taxes ending up with $500,000 of buying power. The math was correct. The knowledge was wrong, but the math was correct. Fourth, most of traditional planning is centered on different levels of risk and risk tolerance. Listen to the words they use. Risk management, risk tolerance. What kind of business do you think, Mr. and Mrs. Client, that they're in? What if we changed the playing field and said, I think there's an opportunity here inside your lifetime, inside your financial future, to put some certainty there. Why is the word certainty gone? What would it feel like tomorrow, Mr. and Mrs. Client, waking up and owning a number in your financial future? The rich have been doing this forever. And when they establish that number, it gives them the permission slip to start businesses, to do the things they want because they've assured and insured their financial future. The problem with the fourth problem here is this. Most of that risk is passed on to the client. The company's not going to take that risk. The agent's not going to. So we have to be, in our conversations and in our personal development, we have to be aware of how the industry continues to approach the client. We need to change the approach. We need to redefine the planning process, redefine our marketing approach, and redefine our culture, the thought process. And finally, most of today's planning is absent of clarity, certainty, and leverage. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about leverage in the road shows. How much leverage do you have in that 401k? What's going on with housing? I just did some economic trends and shifts on housing because it's going to explode. I was pulling up some statistics about housing and all the things that are used to make a house. In the last 18 months, iron and steel is up 25%. Millwork is up 8%. Plumbing is up 4%. Hardware is up 31.4%. Lumber is up 50%. Plywood is up 19.2%. Food is up 3.8%, double what it was last year. And energy, putting gas in the car, is up 32%. Do you see a pattern here? Can we put all the dots together and have a clear thought about what's going on, the trends and the shifts? You see, it seems like almost all of the elements that we're talking to our clients about are absent in traditional financial thinking. The client's looking for clarity, certainty, and leverage, using the least amount of money to create the most amount of wealth, listen to the words, in the least amount of time. Do you have that power? Do you have that gift inside you? You absolutely do. You just have to have the courage and confidence to have the discussion. Allow them to say no. I want them to say no. At least I gave them that opportunity. The courage and the confidence is important, but the only way that you'll get there is with the commitment. The commitment to dip yourself into the knowledge end of our business, not our business, the things that are surrounding our business. You see, a lot of the challenges we're talking about are overwhelming, but they're only going to remain overwhelming if we continue to use the same process. And that process seems to collide with the challenges instead of solving them. The 5 core elements: risk, taxes, regulation, inflation, depreciation of the dollar. Does the 401k solve those problems of risk, taxes, regulation, inflation, depreciation of the dollar? Or I just described to you what it is? Let's approach it from a different angle. Let's approach it from a scenario where, you know what, the client will want to have the conversation. What you're going to have to understand is, if we're having the wrong conversations with the client, we'll never get to the right solution. And understanding financial clarity and the gift inside you, your ability to change someone's life and the generation after that, is a great gift to have. But we spend more time in this industry studying the illustration than studying our skills. What makes us better? What makes us better? And no matter how long I look at that illustration, it does not make me great. I would love to work with you, mentor with you, train you, talk to you about these elements. As a member of the Institute, it's very important because, time is everything. Remember, there's no now in the past, there's no now in the future. Now is the time. And our country is going to go through a lot of changes. And the hope is that we come out the other side of it. And it's not because of what you believe, it's the amount that's being spent, printed, duplicated, compounded. There's one saying I like to use with a client. It seems like the problems compound faster than the solutions. And that's what we're facing in the future. So with that, we're going to have a great discussion about generational solutions, how to create numbers in families' futures, how to maximize the amount and the impact, the amount of business that you have, creating multiple sales inside a family, creating larger sales, and the ability to get referrals from that is not that difficult if we're having the right discussion. So remember, the road shows are going to be important. We're going to be adding some more dates as we move through the year. But again, we're doing them as safe as we can. I believe that you learn more eyeball to eyeball and discussing from a distance with people that attend what's really going on in different sectors of the country. And so it's important. The relationship end of this is important. I'm a little zoomed to death as I'm doing a Zoom program right now, but if you can make it to one of these, it's worth it. It's $250. It's one day, and it's going to be a great event. So with that, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. And for our members, you have my personal cell number. Feel free to give me a call if you have any questions about how the meeting's being set up, what protocol we're using, and what's going on. Just give me a call and we'll talk about it. So with that, I want to thank you for your time today. Time is our most valuable asset, and I don't want to waste any. But I think we have to look at what's going on in the infrastructure of our government, the social infrastructure of our citizens, and the plans that are being laid out that will change America forever. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call, and have a great day. Thank you.